She became the obsession of the CEO who lost control when another man got too close. A forbidden romance between employee and boss changed their lives forever. Get ready, because this story will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment on where you are watching from. The central air conditioning hummed discreetly in the conference room on the 42nd floor, but it wasn't enough to dissipate the tension hovering over the tempered glass table. Emily Johnson adjusted her navy blue blazer for the third time over her white blouse, trying to ignore the weight of the gaze she felt piercing her back. It was March, and the city of New York buzzed below with its chaotic Monday morning traffic, but inside the conference room of Faria Lima Investments, time seemed to have frozen. The first quarter numbers show an 18% growth compared to the same period last year. Her voice came out firm, professional, as she pointed to the graph projected on the screen. However, we have identified 3 areas of vulnerability that need immediate attention. She was 28 years old, 5'5", with brown hair neatly tied in a bun that revealed a face with delicate features, yet carried the expression of someone who learned early not to depend on anyone. Her dark brown eyes, usually focused and determined, carefully avoided looking at the head of the table where he was seated. David Anderson was 39 years old and had been running that corporate empire with an iron fist since he took full control of the company after a divorce that shook the foundations of his life 3 years prior. Tall, about 6'1", broad shoulders perfectly filling out his charcoal grey Italian suit, black hair with a few silver strands at the temples that only enhanced his authoritative air. But it was his eyes, grey-green, intense, analytical, that made anyone in the room feel completely exposed. And at that moment, those eyes had been fixed on Emily for at least 10 uninterrupted minutes. "Continue, Johnson," he said, his deep voice echoing in the room. All the directors present used last names with each other, a corporate formality that created a safe distance between hierarchies. Emily felt an involuntary shiver run down her spine. It wasn't the first time she had noticed that look from him, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. She took a deep breath, her fingers discreetly tightening around the presentation remote. The first vulnerability is in the international investment sector. Exposure to the Asian market has increased by 22%. But our risk coverage has not kept pace with this expansion. And what would your recommendation be? The question came dry, direct. But there was something more in the tone. Everyone in the room noticed. Emily finally met his gaze. It was a mistake. In that moment, she saw something that made her swallow hard. It was not just professional interest. There was hunger in that look, possessiveness, as if he were trying to decipher every layer of her being, every secret she held. "Immediate diversification and rebalancing of the portfolio," she replied, forcing her voice to remain neutral. "I suggest a specific meeting with the risk management team to outline an action plan in the next 15 days. "Schedule it with me," David said, leaning slightly forward. "You will lead this project. Personally." The silence that followed was heavy. Sarah Miller, the executive assistant sitting to David's right at 33 years old, with perfectly styled blonde hair falling over the shoulders of her designer black dress, squeezed, the pen between her fingers with such force that her knuckles turned white. Her blue eyes shot a cold glance at Emily, a non-verbalized warning, but perfectly understandable. "Mr. Anderson, with all due respect," Emily began, choosing each word carefully, "I believe Director Harris, with his experience in international markets, would be more suitable to—" "I didn't ask for your opinion on who should lead the project, Johnson," David cut her off, his voice dropping an octave, which somehow made it even more intimidating. "I made a decision. You have the analytical skills I need. The meeting will be tomorrow at 6 p.m., just the two of us." 6 p.m.? Emily felt her stomach tighten. She needed to pick up her daughter from school by 5:30 at the latest. Laura was only 7 years old and stayed at the neighbor's house when there were delays, but Emily was careful not to overstay Mrs. Thompson's kindness. "Sir, I have an unavoidable commitment at 7 p.m. then." He adjusted without hesitation, but his eyes narrowed slightly, as if cataloguing that information. "Don't be late." The meeting ended 10 minutes later, and Emily was one of the first to leave the room, her heels clicking too quickly on the Italian marble floor of the hallway. She needed air, space, anything to distance herself from that suffocating intensity. "Emily, wait!" The voice of Michael Harris made her stop near the elevators. He was the minority partner in the firm, a long-time friend of David's, a 42-year-old man with a slight belly, neatly cut grey hair, and kind eyes that always seemed genuinely concerned. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" She turned, adjusting the document folder under her arm. "Sure, Mr. Harris. Call me Michael, please. Listen." He looked around, ensuring they were alone. "You need to be careful." "Careful about what?" Emily frowned, although she already knew exactly what he was referring to. "About David. He's different. Since you joined the company 6 months ago, I haven't seen him like this since before the divorce." Michael ran a hand through his hair, clearly uncomfortable. "He can't take his eyes off you. Cancels meetings to show up in rooms where he knows you'll be. Just yesterday, he asked HR about your personal file. That's not normal." The heart of Emily accelerated. "He doesn't have the right to—" "He is the CEO. Technically, he has access to everything," Michael gently interrupted her. "But it's not about legal rights. It's about the fact that David Anderson never does anything halfway. When he wants something, he goes after it with everything he's got. And I know that look. He's obsessed." "I didn't ask for this," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly for the first time. "I just want to do my job, raise my daughter in peace, and—" "You have a daughter?" Michael seemed surprised. "I do. Laura, 7 years old. It's just me and her. Her father never wanted anything to do with us." The words came out more bitter than Emily intended. "I can't afford complications. I need this job. The salary here is what allows me to give her a decent life." Michael nodded slowly, concern deepening on his face. "I understand. But you need to understand one thing about David. He doesn't handle rejection well. His ex-wife destroyed him when she cheated on him with his best friend at the time. Since then, he has control issues. Possessiveness." The elevator arrived with a soft ding, the stainless steel doors opening. Emily stepped in but held the door before it closed. "Thank you for the warning, Michael. But I can take care of myself. I've been through worse." As the doors closed, she saw the reflection of Sarah Miller standing at the end of the hallway, watching everything with an expression that mixed anger and something very much like fear. Emily closed her eyes, resting her head against the cold elevator wall. She had built a stable life for Laura with so much sacrifice, so much hard work. She couldn't let anything, no one, no matter how powerful, put that at risk. But as the elevator descended 42 floors, she couldn't shake those grey-green eyes from her mind, that intensity that promised as much danger as something else, something she didn't allow herself to name. Night fell over New York with that characteristic quickness of March when spring was still teasing its arrival. Emily parked her Honda Civic, almost 10 years old, with a dent on the left side that she never had the money to fix, outside the modest building in Brooklyn where she lived with Laura. It was 6:40, and she still had 20 minutes before she needed to return to the office. "Mommy!" Laura ran to her as soon as she opened the door to their 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor. The girl was a miniature version of Emily. Same brown hair, now loose and messy after a day at school, same expressive dark eyes, but with a smile that still didn't know disillusionment. "Hi, my love." Emily knelt down, hugging her daughter with that physical need only working mothers understand. The scent of children's shampoo and crayons enveloped her, bringing a moment of peace amidst the chaos her day had been. "How was school?" "Aunt Marcia said I made the best drawing in class." Laura pulled her mother by the hand to the coffee table, where a sheet of paper displayed a drawing of two female figures, one large, one small, holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "It's us. Did you like it?" "It's beautiful, sweetheart. The most beautiful of all." Emily kissed the top of her head, feeling the familiar knot in her throat. Everything she did, every difficult decision, every extra hour at work, was for that child. "Listen, Mommy needs to get back to work now, but has Mrs. Thompson already had dinner?" "She has. She made that spaghetti and meatballs that I love." Laura swung her legs, while sitting in the chair. "But are you going to stay late again? You came home when I was already asleep yesterday." Guilt pierced through Emily like a knife. "I know, love, but it's just today, I promise. Tomorrow we can watch that movie you wanted, okay?" "Okay," Laura smiled, but there was a small sadness in her eyes that made Emily's heart break a little. The girl was already so used to the absences that she didn't even complain properly anymore. 15 minutes later, after ensuring Laura was safe with Mrs. Thompson, a 60-year-old widow who lived next door and treated the girl like a granddaughter, Emily was back in the car, driving through the congested streets toward Faria Lima Investments. The traffic was unbearable. It was 7:15 when she finally arrived at the building's parking lot. She was late. Damn it! David Anderson was not the kind of man who tolerated tardiness. Her heels echoed hurriedly across the marble lobby. The night security guard merely waved, already used to seeing her stay late. The elevator seemed to move in slow motion, each floor an eternity. 42 floors had never felt so endless. When the doors finally opened on the top floor, the hallway was dark, except for the light spilling from under David's office door. Emily took a deep breath, smoothed her blazer, which was already wrinkled after a full day of wear, and knocked on the door. "Come in." His voice came from inside, controlled but with a sharp edge. The CEO's office was exactly what one would expect. Enormous, with a whole wall of glass, offering a panoramic view of the illuminated city, Italian designer furniture, a mahogany desk that probably cost more than her car. David stood by the window, hands in his suit pants pockets, still impeccably, dressed even after hours of work. He didn't turn when she entered. "I'm sorry for being late, Mr. Anderson. The traffic was—" "You have a daughter." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Emily felt her blood run cold. "Sir?" He finally turned to face her. The expression on her face was indecipherable, something between curiosity and an intensity that made her want to take a step back. "Lily, 7 years old. She studies at Maplewood Elementary School in Brooklyn. You pick her up every day at 6 p.m., except on Tuesdays when she has tutoring until 7. How did you—" Emily's voice faltered. He had investigated, researched her life, about Lily. "I told you, you will lead a strategic project involving millions in investments. I need to know my team." He began to walk toward her, each step measured, deliberate. "But you didn't mention you were a mother in the job interview." "Because it's not relevant to my professional capabilities," Emily replied, forcing steadiness into her voice even with her heart racing. "And frankly, Mr. Anderson, my personal life is not the company's business." David stopped less than a meter from her. Up close, she could see the details that distance had concealed. The small scar above his left eyebrow, the fine lines around his eyes that betrayed sleepless nights, the way his jaw tightened when he was trying to control himself. You're right. I'm sorry, He ran a hand through his hair, a rare display of vulnerability. I crossed a line. I shouldn't have investigated. The apology caught her off guard. It's okay. Let's just focus on work, shall we? Sure. But he didn't step back. His eyes roamed her face as if memorizing every detail. Do you know why I chose you? To lead this project, Emily? The use of her first name made her shiver. He had never called her that before. Because I have the necessary technical qualifications? She tried, taking a step back, creating distance. No. He stepped forward, nullifying the space she had created. Because 6 months ago, I saw you in the meeting room with that client from Anderson Oil. Do you remember? Emily remembered. Richard Anderson was one of the company's biggest clients, but also a man who thought power gave him the right to be abusive. During the meeting, he had spoken completely inappropriately to Julia, a young intern, making comments about her body and suggesting she be nicer if she wanted to advance in her career. I remember, Emily said softly. You stood up, David continued, his voice lowering, more intense, looked at him and said in front of everyone, Mr. Anderson, Miss Julia is here for her professional competence, not to satisfy your inappropriate comments. If you can't treat her with the basic respect that any human being deserves, I suggest you end this meeting now. You risked your job, risked losing a client that represents $4 million annually for the company, because you wouldn't tolerate seeing someone disrespected. Emily swallowed hard. He was wrong. Someone needed to speak up. In that moment, David said, and there was something dangerously close to reverence in his voice. At that exact moment, I knew you were different, brave, principled, real. He raised his hand as if to touch her face, but stopped midway, his fingers trembling slightly. You have no idea how long it's been since I met someone real. Mr. Anderson, Emily tried, but her voice came out shaky. David, he corrected her. When we're alone, call me David. We can't be doing this. She finally managed to take 2 steps back, placing the table between them as a physical barrier. I need this job. I have a daughter who depends on me. I can't get involved with my boss. That's wrong? Complicated? Risky? He laughed, but it was a sound devoid of humor. I know all of this. Do you think I haven't spent the last 6 months trying to get you out of my head, trying to convince myself that what I feel is just physical attraction, something that will pass? And it isn't, Emily asked, although I'm part of her, that part that had been lonely for so long, desperately wanted the answer to be no. No. The word came out with absolute certainty. I think about you when I wake up, when I'm in meetings, when I try to sleep. I wait for you to walk down the hall just to hear your voice. He paused, closing his eyes as if the next words would hurt. I'm obsessed with you, Emily, and I know this isn't healthy. I know it's not right. But I can't stop. The silence that followed was thick, laden, with everything that wasn't being said. Emily held onto the edge of the table, needing the physical support. I can't be anyone's obsession, she finally said, her voice breaking a little. I've been there. Lily's father was like that at first, intense, possessive, saying he couldn't live without me. Do you know what happened? The moment he found out I was pregnant, that I would be a real responsibility and not just a fantasy, he disappeared, left me alone, 7 months pregnant, with doubts and no job. I won't go through that again. I won't let my daughter go. Through that, David opened his eyes, and for the first time she saw real pain there. I'm not him. You say that now, but what happens when the novelty wears off? When I stop being the fantasy and become just a woman with a daughter, bills to pay, stretch marks on my belly and exhaustion in my eyes, what happens then? Emily, no. She raised her hand, cutting him off. I came here to work, so let's work. Show me the project data, tell me what needs to be done, and I will do it. Professionally, but this, she gestured. Between them, this can't happen, ever. David remained silent for a long moment, studying her with that intensity that made her feel completely exposed. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, let's get to work. He walked over to the table, opened his laptop, and his expression returned to that of the cold, controlled CEO everyone knew. But Emily noticed how his hands trembled slightly while typing in the password, how his jaw remained tense. They worked for 2 hours in tense silence, discussing numbers, strategies, risks, professional, distant. But beneath the surface, there was an electric current, a keen awareness of each movement, each breath of the other. When Emily finally left that room at 9 p.m., she knew she had crossed an invisible line. There was something between them now, acknowledged, named, even if denied. And she had the terrible feeling that no matter how hard she tried to keep her distance, it was already too late. David Anderson was not a man who gave up on what he wanted, and he wanted her. April arrived, bringing intermittent rains that turned New York into a chaos of traffic and broken umbrellas. Emily had spent the last 3 weeks in a constant state of tension, torn between the project that consumed more and more of her time and the need to keep a safe distance from David Anderson. But he was everywhere. "Good morning, Emily." His deep voice surprised her in the break room on the 38th floor, where she'd gone at 7 in the morning just to avoid rush hour. He was there, impeccable as always in a navy suit, making coffee as if it were the most natural thing in the world for the CEO to be in the break room before 8 o'clock. "Mr. Anderson," she replied, formally, gripping her mug tighter than necessary. "I didn't expect to find anyone here at this hour." "I could say the same." He turned, leaning against the counter, and those grey-green eyes studied her with an intensity that had become all too familiar. "You're avoiding the normal hours. You arrive before everyone else, leave after everyone has gone. Why?" "Because the project requires full dedication," she lied, grabbing the sugar and adding 2 spoons to her coffee, needing to do something with her hands. "Or because you're avoiding me." Emily spilled a bit of coffee as she stirred the drink, roughly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" David took 2 steps toward her, and the small break room suddenly felt tiny. "In the last 3 weeks, you've sent all the reports by email when you used to deliver them in person. When you need to discuss something, you always bring someone along, Julia, Carlos, anyone who can serve as a shield. In board meetings, you sit as far away from me as possible. And now you're coming to work at hours you know I won't be around. You noticed all that?" The words came out before Emily could stop them, accusatory and vulnerable at the same time. "I notice everything about you." There was no hesitation in his voice, just raw truth. "The way you bite your lower lip when you're focused. How you twist a strand of hair around your finger when you're nervous. The fact that you always wear flats on Fridays because that's the day you pick up your daughter early to take her to the park. I see everything, Emily." The first name again. She had asked him to stop, but he kept using it when they were alone, and it sounded more intimate, more dangerous each time. "This isn't normal," she said, her voice coming out lower than she intended. "You realize that, don't you? What you're doing, observing every move I make, showing up where I am, that's not healthy." David closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, there was something vulnerable there that disarmed her completely. "I know. God, I know. My therapist says the same thing." "You're in therapy?" Emily couldn't hide her surprise. "I started 2 weeks ago, twice a week." He ran his hand through his hair in that gesture she was beginning to recognize as a sign of frustration. "After that night in my office when you said you couldn't be anyone's obsession, I stayed up all night thinking. You were right. I was, behaving like Like him, like your ex. It's not quite like that. It is. David cut her off, but gently. I was suffocating you, invading your privacy, using my power as CEO to get information about you that I had no right to have. So I sought help, because... He hesitated, and for the first time, Emily saw him truly uncertain. Because I don't want to be that man. I don't want you to be afraid of me. I'm not afraid of you, Emily admitted, the words slipping out before she could censor them. I'm afraid of what you make me feel. The air between them became charged. David took another step, and now he was so close that she could smell his woody scent, see the little golden flecks in his green eyes. And what do I make you feel? His voice was a rough whisper. Before Emily could respond, or flee, she wasn't sure which, the break room door swung open abruptly. "Ah, there you are, David," Sarah Miller stormed in, like a blonde whirlwind, her high heels clicking on the floor with authority. She stopped abruptly upon seeing the two, her blue eyes narrowing dangerously. "Did I interrupt something?" "We were just having coffee before the 8 o'clock meeting," David replied, stepping away from Emily with a naturalness that seemed rehearsed. But Emily saw how his fists clenched, the tension in his shoulders. "The 8 o'clock meeting has been rescheduled for 9, Sarah said, her tone overly sweet, falsely saccharine. She turned to Emily with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Emily, I didn't know you arrived this early. Working hard on the strategic project?" There was poison in that simple question, a clear insinuation that perhaps Emily was here for reasons that had nothing to do with work. Emily took a deep breath, trying to maintain her professional tone despite the anger bubbling in her chest. "Whenever a project requires it, Miller," she replied. "If you'll excuse me, I need to return to my desk." She left the break room without looking back, but she felt the weight of David's gaze on her back until she turned the corner. The rest of the day was an exercise in a forced normalcy. Emily buried herself in spreadsheets, reports, and risk analyses. But at 2 p.m., an email arrived from David.Anderson of Feria Limy Investments, com to Emily.Johnson Feria Limy Investments, com, subject, Corporate Summer Festival. "Emily, the board has decided to hold our traditional Corporate Summer Festival at Central Park next Saturday. It's an important team-building event. All employees are expected to attend, and they can bring family members. I believe Lily would enjoy the activities we have planned for the kids. I hope to see both of you there." D.A. Emily read the email 3 times, her heart racing. He wanted to meet Lily. He was specifically inviting her daughter. This crossed all the boundaries she had tried to establish. Her hands trembled as she began typing a response, deleted it, and typed again. How could she say no when it was clearly a corporate event? How could she protect Lily when David already knew everything about her? "Emily!" Julia's voice pulled her from her thoughts. The 22-year-old intern, with curly hair tied back in a ponytail, stood at her office door with a worried expression. "Are you okay? You look pale." "I'm fine, Ju, just tired." Julia stepped inside, closing the door behind her, an unusual gesture that immediately put Emily on alert. "Can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure. Is there something going on between you and Mr. Anderson?" Emily felt her blood run cold. "What? No. Why would you ask that?" "Because people are talking," Julia said quietly, glancing at the door as if fearing to be overheard. "Sarah is spreading implications, saying that you're only leading the project because you have a special relationship with the CEO, that you use your appearance to gain advantages." The anger Emily felt was visceral, burning. "That which—" "I know it's not true," Julia hurried to say. "I know you, Emily. You're the most professional and ethical person I've ever met. But people, they're starting to talk. And you know how it is in this corporate environment. Gossip spreads fast." Emily covered her face with her hands, feeling the world crumble around her. This was exactly what she feared, not just for herself, but because this gossip could somehow reach Lily. Children overheard their parents talking, parents of schoolmates who worked at the company. It was only a matter of time. "What do I do, Ju?" she asked, hating how her voice sounded shaky. "You keep doing your job impeccably, just like you always have. Let your work speak for you." Julia sat down in the chair across from her desk. "But Emily, if you have to work directly with Mr. Anderson, it might be better to always have someone with you, a witness, so no one can make up stories." That was exactly what Emily had been doing, but hearing Julia verbalize it made everything feel more real, more suffocating. That night, when she got home at 9 p.m., again too late to put Lily to bed, she found her daughter drawing at the kitchen table under the watchful eye of Mrs. Thompson. "Mommy!" Lily ran to hug her. "Look what I drew for you." It was another drawing of the two of them, but this time there was a third figure, a tall man, drawn with the characteristic imprecision of 7-year-olds. "Who is this, sweetheart?" Emily asked, although her stomach was already churning. "It's the prince. Every princess needs a prince," the teacher said, "so I drew one for you, so you won't be alone." Emily hugged her daughter tightly, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. Lily was starting to notice her mother's loneliness, the absence of a father figure, someone to share the weight with her. "I'm not alone, my love. I have you. You're all I need." But as she helped Lily brush her teeth and tucked her into bed, reading the same story, Little Red Riding Hood, which the girl never tired of hearing, Emily couldn't stop thinking about David's email. "I hope to see both of you there." He wasn't just interested in her. He was trying to be part of Lily's life too, and that was infinitely more dangerous than any physical attraction or personal obsession. Because if Lily grew attached to him, if she started to see him as that father figure she longed for, and then everything fell apart, as it inevitably would, it would be her daughter who paid the price. Emily couldn't allow that. The next morning she arrived at the office at 7:15, went straight to David's office, which was locked outside business hours, and left a sealed envelope with his secretary. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Mr. Anderson, with all due respect, I must request my transfer from the strategic project. I believe my work here has been satisfactory, and any of the senior analysts can take my place without disrupting the workflow. As for the corporate summer festival, my daughter and I will not be able to attend due to previously scheduled personal commitments. I ask that you respect my decision and do not attempt to reverse this situation. Sincerely, Emily Johnson." It was a lie. She had no commitments, but she needed that distance before it was too late, before her heart began to believe that maybe, just maybe, David Anderson could be different from all the other men who had disappointed her. David's response came before Emily even finished her first cup of coffee that morning. She was in her office reviewing contracts when the door swung open abruptly without any prior knock. David entered like a contained storm, closing the door behind him. He clicked definitively, the sound echoing through the small room. He looked different. His disheveled black hair suggested he had run his hands through it repeatedly. His loosened tie, and in his right hand, crumpled, was the envelope she had left with the secretary less than an hour ago. "No," he said, his voice low, but filled with an intensity that made Emily instinctively rise from her chair. "Mr. Anderson, No," he repeated, throwing the envelope onto her desk. "You are not transferring from the project. You are not running away. And you are definitely not going to use your daughter as an excuse to hide from me." The anger that exploded in Emily's chest was instantaneous and burning. "How dare you come into my office without knocking, without permission, and tell me what I can or cannot do? And how dare you mention my daughter? Because I care." The words came out, In a controlled roar, David walked around the desk but stopped when he saw Emily recoil, her eyes widening. He froze, and something broke in his expression. "Shit. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." "You are scaring me," Emily admitted, her voice trembling. "You come in here like a possessive madman, telling me I can't make decisions about my own career, about my own life." "You're right." David ran his hands over his face, and when he lowered them, he looked exhausted. "You are completely right. I'm losing control. Again, exactly what my therapist warned me could happen." He leaned against the wall, putting physical distance between them. "But Emily, please, listen to me. Just give me 5 minutes. If after that you still want to leave the project, I will personally sign the transfer." Emily crossed her arms, trying to create a barrier, even if symbolic. 5 minutes. "When my ex-wife cheated on me," he began, and his voice was different now, lower, more vulnerable. "It wasn't just the physical betrayal that destroyed me. It was the fact that she did it with Gabriel, my best friend since college, the guy who was my best man at our wedding, the guy I trusted with my life." He looked down at his hands, as if he were seeing something only he could see. "They had been doing it for 2 years. 2 years. And I didn't realize. I didn't see the signs. I was a blind fool who believed every lie." Emily felt her heart tighten, but she remained silent. "After the divorce, I became something I hate, controlling, possessive, paranoid. I checked the phones of the women I dated, tracked where they were. I needed to know every detail of their lives because if I knew everything, no one could deceive me again. No one could hurt me." He finally looked at her, and there were unshed tears in his eyes. "I ended relationships before they even started. I pushed away anyone who tried to get close, and then you showed up." "David." The name slipped out before Emily realized, without formalities, just soft and careful. "You are everything I didn't know I was looking for. Strong, honest, brave enough to confront me when I was wrong. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt something beyond anger and distrust. I felt hope." He took a step toward her, cautious, as if approaching a frightened animal. "But I'm messing everything up. I'm repeating the same patterns, being obsessive, invasive, becoming exactly the kind of man you have every right to fear." "You are," Emily agreed, but her voice was softer now. "You are doing everything wrong, David. Investigating me, showing up everywhere, trying to control my decisions. That is not love. That is not even healthy interest. That is obsession, and obsession destroys everything it touches." "I know. That's why I started therapy. That's why I'm here, telling you all this. Even knowing I will seem pathetic and broken." He was less than a meter away from her now. "Emily, I'm not asking you to give me a chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking you not to give up on the project. You have worked hard these past few months. This project could change your career, give you the recognition you deserve. Don't throw that away because of me." "And how do you expect me to work with you when this tension exists between us?" Emily asked, hating how small her voice sounded. "By establishing clear boundaries, rules that I will follow, no exceptions." David pulled out his phone, opened the Notes app. "First rule, all project meetings will have at least one other person present. Julia, Carlos, anyone you choose. Second rule, no emails or messages outside of business hours unless it's a real work-related emergency. Third rule, I will no longer ask anything about your personal life. Nothing about Laura, nothing about your plans, nothing that isn't strictly professional." Emily watched him typing the rules on his phone, his fingers moving quickly. There was something painfully sincere in that gesture, in the way he was trying to create structure, control, not over her, but over himself. "Fourth rule," she added. And David looked up, surprised and hopeful. "You continue therapy. If I find out you cancelled a session, I will leave the project immediately. No discussion. Agreed, he replied immediately, typing. Anything else? Emily thought for a moment. Fifth rule. If Sarah Miller keeps spreading rumors about me, about us, you need to deal with it, officially. Because those rumors not only affect my professional reputation, they could reach my daughter, and I will not allow her to be exposed to that. David's expression darkened. What is Sarah saying? That I have a special relationship with you, that I am using my appearance to gain advantages, that the only reason leading the project is because we are involved. The words came out bitter. And before you say I shouldn't care about gossip, I have to care. Because when people start questioning my professional integrity, when they start diminishing my accomplishments as if they are just a result of who I'm supposedly sleeping with, that affects me directly. It affects my future chances, my credibility, everything I've built. David was trembling with contained anger. I will resolve this today. Sarah will be called to HR. She will receive a formal warning, and if she continues, she will be fired. No, Emily said firmly. That will just make it seem like you are protecting me, that she was right about us. You need to do this the right way. Document her inappropriate behaviors, the gossip that can be substantiated, and handle it through the proper channels. HR, witnesses, everything officially. You're right. David added that to his notes. I'll talk to Michael, too. He can serve as a mediator if needed. They fell silent. For a moment, the weight of the conversation hanging between them. Emily looked at the man in front of her. Broken, trying to rise again, honest about his flaws, in a way she had never seen in anyone before. Why are you doing this? She asked softly. Why are you exposing yourself like this? You're the CEO. You could just force me to stay on the project. You could use your power to get what you want. Because I've been that man, David replied, and there was self-loathing in his voice. In the months after my divorce, I used my power in ways that shame me. I pressured people. I manipulated situations. I convinced myself that the ends justified the means. He looked her in the eyes. But then I saw you standing up for Julia against that abusive client. I saw you put your integrity above your professional safety, and I realized I had become exactly the kind of man you would have confronted, the kind of man you would despise. I don't want to be that man. Not with you, not ever again. Emily felt something change within her. Not trust, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of something. The possibility that David could be different, that he could truly change. Okay, she finally said. I'll stay on the project, but we follow all these rules, no exceptions. And David, if you cross those boundaries again, if you become invasive or possessive again, I won't just leave the project, I will leave the company, forever. Understood. He extended his hand, formal, professional. Thank you, Emily, for giving me this chance, for not giving up. She shook his hand, and the electricity that passed through that simple touch was undeniable. In his eyes, she saw that he felt it too, but he released her hand immediately, taking a step back, respecting the space. I'll let you get back to work, he said, walking to the door. With his hand on the doorknob, he paused. And Emily? About the corporate summer festival. I understand if you don't want to go, but it was Michael who suggested including families this year. He has 3 kids and said it would be good for company morale. It wasn't my idea. I just wanted you to know. After he left, Emily sat heavily in her chair, her heart still racing. She picked up the crumpled envelope he had tossed on the table, pulled out his letter. There was something written on the back, in David's firm, angular handwriting. You deserve to be more than someone's obsession. You deserve to be seen, valued, respected. I will spend the rest of the time we have together proving that I can be the man who offers you that. Even if it's just as your co-worker, even if it's just as someone who admires you from afar. You deserve this, Emily, and more." She held the paper against her chest, closing her eyes, and for the first time allowed herself to question if maybe, just maybe, there was a possibility of something real emerging from all this chaos. The Saturday of the corporate summer festival arrived with a flawless blue sky, the kind of day that New York rarely offered in April. Emily had spent the entire week internally debating whether or not to attend the event, but it was Lily who made the decision for her. "Mommy, Isabella from my class said there will be prize fishing, secret admirer letters, and everything." Lily jumped on Emily's bed at 7 in the morning, her dark eyes shining with excitement. "She said her dad works at your company and they're bringing their dog. Can we go? Please?" And so, at 2 o'clock, Emily found herself driving towards Central Park with Lily, humming festival songs in the back seat, wearing a red and white checkered dress that Mrs. Thompson had specially sewn for the occasion. The park was transformed. Colourful banners stretched between the trees. Food stalls wafted the smell of popcorn, corn pudding, and hot spiced cider. An improvised stage played live country music, and children ran around with painted hands and colourful balloons. "Wow!" Lily held Emily's hand tightly, her eyes wide. "It's so big." "It is, my love, but you stay close to me, okay?" Emily scanned the area with her eyes, looking for familiar faces from work, but especially avoiding searching for one specific face. "Emily! Lily!" Julia's voice echoed from near one of the stalls. The young woman came running towards them, wearing a baby blue country-style dress with braids in her hair. "I'm so glad you came. Lily, you look beautiful. Want to come with me to get your face painted?" Lily looked at her mother with those pleading eyes, and Emily nodded. "You can go, but stay with Julia the whole time." As the two walked away toward the face-painting booth, finally, she allowed her eyes to search the park, and she found him almost immediately. David was near the barbecue, wearing, to her surprise, a simple plaid shirt rolled up to the elbows and jeans. She had never seen him in such casual clothes. He looked different, younger, less intimidating. He was chatting with Michael and another man she didn't recognize, but he seemed relaxed in a way she had never seen in the corporate environment. As if sensing the weight of her gaze, David turned his head. Their eyes met across the crowd, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. He smiled, small, cautious, and waved briefly before returning his attention to the conversation, respecting boundaries exactly as he promised. "Emily, I can't believe you came!" Sarah Miller appeared out of nowhere, wearing a country-style dress that probably cost more than Emily's rent, with flawless makeup and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And alone, I thought you'd bring your little girl." The way she said, "little girl," with a condescending, almost disdainful tone, made anger rise in Emily's throat. "Lily is over there with Julia," Emily replied coldly, pointing to where the two were in line for face painting. "And you, Sarah? Did you come alone too?" Sarah's smile faltered. "I came with David, actually. I mean, we came together because we live nearby, and it made sense." She quickly corrected herself, but the damage was done. She wanted Emily to believe there was something between them. "How convenient," Emily said, keeping her tone neutral even as unexpected jealousy tightened her chest. "If you'll excuse me, I need to check on Lily." She walked away before Sarah could continue, but she felt the woman's calculating and malicious eyes on her back. The afternoon passed surprisingly pleasantly. Lily was in paradise, winning prizes at the prize fishing, eating cotton candy until her mouth was all pink, dancing to live country music with other kids. Emily allowed herself to relax, chatting with co-workers she rarely saw outside the corporate environment, but she was constantly aware of where David was, and he, she noticed, was equally aware of her. Their eyes occasionally met across the crowd, but he kept his distance, exactly as promised. He didn't approach, didn't create situations where they would need to interact alone, until Lily decided to change everything. "Mummy! Mummy!" The girl ran up to Emily around 6 o'clock, pulling her by the hand. "There's a man over there who said he works with you, and he's really nice. He let me win 3 times at the prize fishing, even when I didn't catch anything." Emily's heart sank. "Lily? Which man?" But she already knew. Lily was pulling her directly toward the fishing booth, where David was crouched down, adjusting the plastic. Fish in the artificial water, surrounded by a group of excited children. "It's him! Uncle David!" Lily practically shouted, and Emily saw David look up, his expression going through a series of emotions. Surprise, pleasure, and then caution when he saw Emily's expression. "Lily, you shouldn't bother Mr. Anderson. He's busy," Emily said, trying to back away, but Lily had already let go of her hand and run to David. "Uncle David, this is my mom, the mommy I told you about," Lily said with all the innocence of her 7 years. David stood up slowly, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Hi, Lily, and hello, Emily." His voice was careful, formal. "Lily told me you live in Brooklyn and that you have a really nice neighbor who makes the best spaghetti and meatballs in the world." Emily felt her face heat up. "Lily, you shouldn't be talking about our life to strangers." "But he's not a stranger. He works with you, and he's super nice," Lily protested, and then, with that ability children have to say the most devastating things with total sincerity, added, "And he has pretty eyes. Do you think he has pretty eyes, Mummy?" Emily wished the ground would open up and swallow her. David, to his credit, turned red up to his ears. "Lily, that's not an appropriate question to ask," Emily said, mortified. "But Grandma Thompson always says you need to find someone with kind eyes, and Uncle David has kind eyes," Lily argued with the relentless logic of a child. "How about," David gently intervened, clearly trying to save Emily from the embarrassment, "you go get some more cotton candy with the other kids? I heard the booth is giving out special flavors now." "Can I, Mummy?" Lily asked, already bouncing with excitement. "You can, but stay where I can see you," Emily agreed, desperately needing a moment to compose herself. As soon as Lily ran off with a group of kids, Emily finally looked at David. "I'm so sorry. She's very chatty and doesn't have a filter, and—" "You don't need to apologize," David gently interrupted her. "She's amazing, Emily. Smart, funny, full of life. You're doing a wonderful job raising her." The words hit Emily in an unexpected way, making her defenses waver. No one ever recognized the hard work of being a single mother. No one saw the sleepless nights, the constant worries, the sacrifice of putting someone else first, always. "Thank you," she said softly, her eyes burning with unshed tears. "Emily, David started, taking a step toward her, and then stopped abruptly when he realized what he was doing. "Sorry, boundaries, I almost forgot." But it was at that moment that another man approached. Tall, around 35, with light brown hair, an easy and confident smile. He wore a blue dress shirt under a denim vest, and there was something familiar about his face that Emily couldn't quite place. "David! What a coincidence to find!" "You here?" The man spoke with a familiarity that made David tense immediately. "And you must be Emily Johnson. I've heard a lot about you." "And you are?" Emily asked, confused. "Brian Taylor. I just got transferred from Atlanta to take over the sales management. I start on Monday." He extended his hand, and when Emily shook it, he held on for a moment longer than necessary, his eyes scanning her face with obvious interest. "It's a pleasure to meet someone as beautiful as competent." David didn't exaggerate. Emily felt immediate discomfort, but before she could respond, she noticed the change in David. He'd gone completely still, his eyes fixed on Brian with an intensity that bordered on hostility. "Brian," David said, his voice so cold that Emily felt a shiver, "I suggest you let go of Ms. Johnson now, and keep your comments professional." Brian released Emily's hand, but smiled in a way that was almost provocative. "Relax, David. It was just a greeting. Or do you have a problem with co-workers being friendly with each other?" The tension in the air was palpable. Emily saw David's fists clench, noticed how his jaw tightened. He was about to lose control. "David," she said softly, lightly touching his arm, the first voluntary touch she had initiated. "Breathe." The touch seemed to break the trance. David looked at her, and Emily saw him struggling internally, making a visible effort to calm down. "Excuse me," David said through clenched teeth, quickly stepping away toward the parking area. Brian laughed, but it was a humorless sound. "Hot temper, our CEO. But between you and me," he leaned closer to Emily, lowering his voice, "if you need someone more balanced to talk to, my desk will be on the 38th floor. Same area as yours." Before Emily could respond or give him the slap he deserved, Michael appeared, looking concerned. "Emily, have you seen David? He ran off and—" Michael stopped upon seeing Brian, and his expression darkened. "Taylor, I didn't know you had already arrived in New York." "I arrived yesterday. I thought it would be good to start getting to know people before Monday." Brian smiled, but there was something calculating about that smile. "I'm already loving the team." "I'm sure you are," Michael said dryly. "If you'll excuse me, I need to speak with Emily, privately." Brian stepped back with a casual wave, but not before throwing one more appreciative glance at Emily that made her feel dirty. "That man is a problem," Michael said, as soon as Brian was out of earshot. "You need to stay away from him." "Why? What's wrong with him?" Emily asked, the feeling of discomfort increasing. Michael hesitated, clearly debating how much to reveal. "Brian Taylor isn't just the new sales manager. He's Amanda's cousin, David's ex-wife. And if he's here, it's not a coincidence. Amanda is using him to destabilize David in some way. I tried to warn David not to approve the hiring, but he thought I was being paranoid." Emily's stomach sank. "So he approached me on purpose to provoke David?" "Probably. And by the way David reacted, it worked perfectly." Michael looked toward the parking lot. "You should go after him. When he gets like this, when he loses control, he does things he regrets later." Emily looked at where Lily was playing, safe and happy with the other kids, and then in the direction David had taken. Every maternal instinct told her to stay with her daughter, but something stronger, something she wasn't ready to name, pulled her toward David. "Julia," she called, and when the young girl came running, she quickly explained, "Can you keep an eye on Lily for 15 minutes? I need to sort something out quickly." "Sure. Go! Go!" Emily practically ran toward the parking lot, her heart racing. She found David leaning against his car, a sleek black BMW, his hands resting on the hood, head down, breathing as if he had run a marathon. "David," she called softly. He didn't lift his head. "You should go back to the party, back to Lily. You shouldn't be here. I know what Brian is. Michael told me." Emily approached cautiously. "And I know he was trying to provoke you." "And he succeeded," David said, his voice rough with self-recrimination. "Damn it, Emily, I was about to hit him, in front of everyone, in front of your daughter. But you didn't," she interrupted. "You controlled yourself. You breathed and walked away. That's what matters." David finally looked at her, and there was raw anguish in his eyes. "You saw how I reacted to seeing him touch you, look at you that way. It's exactly what I told you would happen, the obsession, the possessiveness. I haven't improved at all." Emily, I'm the same messed up man as always. No, Emily said firmly, taking another step toward him. You're not. The man before would have hit him, would have caused a scene, but you didn't do that. You're fighting against your impulses, and that means something. It means I'm a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, David said bitterly. Emily did something that surprised them both. She reached out and gently touched his face, forcing him to look at her. You're in therapy. You're setting boundaries. You're trying. No one changes overnight, David. No one heals years of trauma in a few weeks, but you're trying, and that's more than a lot of people do. David covered her hand with his, closing his eyes for a moment. You shouldn't be so kind to me. I don't deserve it. Maybe not. But Lily just asked me if I thought her eyes were beautiful, and I couldn't answer because the honest answer scares me. The words slipped out before Emily could stop them, vulnerable and true. David's eyes widened. Emily, no. She lowered. The Emily pulled her hand away, creating distance again. Don't say anything now. We both need to go. Back to the party. We need to pretend this moment never happened. But David, thank you for trying, for fighting against who you are to become what you could be. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Emily, I think your eyes are beautiful too. In fact, I think you are absolutely stunning, and not just physically. The way you love your daughter, how you fight for her, how you don't bend to anyone. You are the strongest woman I've ever met. Emily didn't turn around. She didn't trust herself to look at him at that moment. She simply kept walking, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. When she returned to the party, Lily ran to hug her, and Emily held her daughter tightly, using that unconditional love as an anchor against the storm of emotions threatening to sweep her away. But her eyes found David's across the crowd once again, and she saw in them the same thing she felt. Something was changing between them, something inevitable and frightening and possibly wonderful, and she had no idea if she was ready for it. May arrived, bringing the frantic routine of monthly closings and a palpable change in the company's atmosphere. Brian Taylor had settled into the 38th floor as promised, and in just 2 weeks he had already made his mark, not necessarily a positive one. Good morning, Emily. His voice came through for the 5th time that week, appearing at her office door at 8:15 in the morning. He always found excuses to stop by. A report he needed to understand, a question about internal procedures, a lunch suggestion to discuss synergies between departments. Good morning, Brian, Emily replied without taking her eyes off the computer screen, already tired of the routine. If it's about the quarterly sales report, I sent it to your email yesterday. Oh, it's not about that. He entered uninvited, casually sitting in the chair across from her desk. Actually, I was thinking, you seem overwhelmed with this strategic project. How about a coffee after work? We can relax, talk about things other than work. You deserve a break. Before Emily could respond, another voice echoed through the door. Johnson, I need to talk to you now. David was standing in the doorway, and the expression on his face was unreadable. But Emily was already learning to read the micro-expressions, the way his jaw tightened, how his eyes narrowed slightly. He was furious. Sure, Mr. Anderson. Brian, we'll talk later, Emily said, clearly dismissing him. Brian stood up leisurely, passing by David with a teasing smile. Anderson, always a pleasure. David didn't respond, just stepped aside to let him pass. But Emily saw how his hands clenched into fists. When Brian finally disappeared down the hall, David entered and closed the door with a definitive click. This has to stop, he said, his voice low but charged with tension. What? Exactly. Emily crossed her arms, feeling defensive. Him showing up here all the time, asking you out, looking at you like... David stopped, running his hands through his hair in a gesture of frustration. Sorry, it's none of my business. You're free to go out with whoever you want. I don't want to go out with him, Emily said firmly. I didn't want to any of the 5 times he asked this week. But David, I can't just be rude to a manager without a good reason. Even knowing who he really is, knowing he's here with ulterior motives. And what do you want me to do? Go to HR saying he's asking me out for coffee? That's not harassment, David. It's just inconvenient and annoying. David stepped closer to the desk, placing his hands on the glass and leaning forward. Emily, listen. I know men like Brian. I was a man like him once. He's not interested in you romantically. He's using you as a tool to destabilize me. I know that. Emily stood up, meeting his gaze firmly. Do you think I'm an idiot? I know exactly what he's doing. But if I complain, if I do something official against him, I'll just give more ammunition to the rumors Sarah is spreading. People will say you're protecting me, that we have a relationship, that... And what if we do? The words slipped out before David could stop them, raw and honest. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily felt her heart race, her breath caught in her throat. What? She whispered. David closed his eyes, clearly regretting it. But when he opened them again, there was determination there. What if we stop fighting this? What if we admit there's something between us and let the consequences come? Ah, you crazy? Emily said, but her voice trembled. Do you have any idea what this would do to my career, to my reputation, to my daughter when her classmates' parents start commenting that her mother is sleeping with the boss? Then we do it the right way. Transparently, we go to HR, declare it officially. I step back from the direct supervision of the project. No. Emily rounded the desk, putting herself face to face with him. You don't understand. No matter how we do it, people will always say, I got this position because I'm with you. That every promotion, every recognition I get from now on is because I'm sleeping with the CEO. My work, my competence, everything I've built will be reduced to who I'm sleeping with. The crude word echoed in the room. David recoiled as if he had been slapped. You're right, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I didn't think about the consequences for you. I only thought about what I wanted. That's exactly the problem, David. You always think about what you want. I can't afford that luxury. I have a daughter who depends on me. Every decision I make affects not just me, but her as well. David nodded slowly, the pain evident on his face. You're right about everything. I'm going to step back. I won't come to your office anymore. I won't call you for private meetings. I'll give you the space you need. But as he turned to leave, Emily felt something tear inside her. David, wait. He stopped, but didn't turn around. I didn't say I don't want to. I just said I can't. There's a difference. David looked over his shoulder, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her tremble. And that difference is killing me, Emily, because wanting and not being able to is worse than never having had the chance. After he left, Emily sat heavily in her chair, covering her face with her hands. How had everything become so complicated? How had she allowed her feelings to develop to the point of physically hurting when he left the room? A knock on the door made her lift her head. It was Julia, looking hesitant. Em, can I come in? Of course, Ju. What's up? Julia closed the door and sat down, her hands nervously fiddling with the hem of her shirt. I need to tell you something about Sarah. Emily felt a weight in her stomach. What did she do now? She altered some documents, financial reports for the strategic project. Julia pulled a folder from her bag, placing it on the table. I found out by accident while filing old documents. The numbers didn't match the original versions you asked me to check last week. Emily opened the folder, her eyes scanning the numbers. Julia was right. Values had been modified, dates changed, some transactions were recorded twice, while others simply disappeared. This makes it look like I'm embezzling funds, Emily whispered, horror settling in. If external auditors look at this, if the board sees these reports, they'll think I'm committing fraud. I know. That's why I came straight to you. Julia took her hand. Em, we need to go to HR now, before she spreads these false versions. We can't go to HR. Who's going to believe me against the executive assistant who has worked with David for 7 years? They'll think it's retaliation because she's spreading rumors about me and David. Then let's go straight to David. No! Emily stood up abruptly. We can't involve David in this. It will look exactly like what Sarah wants. Me running to him every time I have a problem. Him protecting me. That we have some kind of inappropriate relationship. But Em, this is serious. This could destroy your career, get you into legal trouble. Emily walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Millions of people, each with their own problems, their own battles, and there she was, trapped in a situation that seemed increasingly hopeless. I need proof, she finally said. Irrefutable proof that it was Sarah who altered those documents. Access logs, timestamps, anything that shows I didn't do this. I can help, Julia said immediately. My boyfriend works in IT. He can check the access logs without raising suspicion. Julia, I can't ask you to do that. If they find out, you could lose your job. You defended me when that abusive client was humiliating me. You risked your own position for me. Now it's my turn to do the same for you. Emily felt tears threatening, but she held them back. Thank you, Ju, but we have to be careful. Very careful. That night, Emily got home at 11 p.m., emotionally and physically exhausted. Lily was already asleep, and Mrs. Thompson was napping on the couch with the soap opera playing on the TV. Sorry, Mrs. Thompson, Emily whispered, gently touching the woman's shoulder. I didn't mean to stay out so late. Don't worry, dear, Mrs. Thompson said, straightening her glasses. Lily had a good dinner, did her homework and went to bed at 9. She's an angel. The woman hesitated, studying Emily's face. But you're not okay. What's going on? Just work, Mrs. Thompson. It'll pass. Emily, the woman's voice grew firmer. I've known you for 5 years. I saw you pregnant, alone, struggling. I saw you working 2 jobs to pay the bills. I saw you build this life for your daughter. And I know when something is eating you up inside. Emily felt the barrier she had been maintaining crumble. I don't know what to do, Mrs. Thompson. There's a woman at work trying to sabotage me. There's a man using me to provoke someone else. And there's... She stopped. The words caught in her throat. And there's someone you're starting to care about, Mrs. Thompson gently completed. But you're afraid he might be like Lily's, your father. Afraid your daughter might get hurt. Afraid you might get hurt. How do you... Because I was you, dear. 40 years ago, when my husband died, I had a small daughter and a whole world against me, and I locked myself away. I didn't let anyone in. I built walls so high that even when good men tried to get close, I pushed them away. Do you know what happened? Mrs. Thompson held Emily's hands. I ended up alone. Safe, yes, but completely alone. Don't make the same mistake I did, Emily. Don't let fear steal the chance to be happy. What if I get hurt? What if Lily gets hurt? What if you don't get hurt? Mrs. Thompson countered. What if it's different this time? You'll never know if you don't try. After Mrs. Thompson left, Emily entered Lily's room. The girl... Emily slept peacefully, hugging the worn teddy bear she had since she was a baby. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, gently stroking her daughter's hair. What should I do, my love? She whispered. How do I know if I'm protecting you or hiding behind you? Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Emily, it's Michael. I got your number from HR. I hope you don't mind. I need to talk to you urgently. It's about David and something I discovered about Brian. Can you call me when you can? Any time is fine. Emily's heart raced. She quietly left the room and dialed the number. Michael, it's me, Emily. What happened? Thanks for calling. Michael's voice sounded tense. Emily, I hired a private investigator to look into Brian, and what I discovered is worse than we imagined. Worse how? Brian isn't just the cousin of David's ex-wife. He has a debt with her family. Amanda is paying him, very well I might add, to psychologically destroy David. The plan is to provoke such an emotional collapse that David loses control in front of the board, giving them reasons to remove him from the CEO position. And you, Emily, you are the main weapon in this plan. Emily felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. What? Amanda found out, I don't know how, about David's interest in you, and she instructed Brian to flirt with you, to provoke you, to create situations that would drive David insane with jealousy. Every time Brian approaches you, every time he invites you out, it's calculated to push David to his limit. My God, Emily whispered, leaning against the wall. Does David know about this? No, and this is where it gets complicated. He can't know, not yet. Michael sighed heavily. David is walking a tightrope, Emily. Therapy is helping, but he's still vulnerable. If he finds out that his ex-wife is orchestrating all of this, using you as a pawn in her game, I don't know how he'll react. And if he loses control publicly, that's exactly what Amanda wants. So what do we do? For now, you keep your distance from Brian, documenting every inappropriate approach he makes. I'll continue gathering evidence, and we keep David in the dark until we have solid enough evidence to expose everything at once. After hanging up, Emily slid to the floor, hugging her knees to her chest. She was just a financial analyst who wanted to do her job and raise her daughter in peace. How had she become the center of a corporate conspiracy, the target of professional sabotage, and the object of an obsession that could destroy everything? And the worst part, the part that scared her more than anything else, was that despite everything, she still wanted to protect David. She still cared about what would happen to him. Because at some point, amidst all the complications and chaos, she had started to fall in love with him, and that was more dangerous than any conspiracy Amanda could orchestrate. June brought the typical damp cold of New York winter and a tension that permeated every corridor of Faria Lima Investments. Emily had spent the last 3 weeks executing a delicate balance, avoiding Brian without seeming obvious, documenting every inappropriate interaction, working with David while maintaining professional distance, even when every fiber of her being screamed to do otherwise. Julia had managed to get the access logs through her boyfriend, and the evidence was irrefutable. Sarah had accessed the strategic project files at odd hours, 3 in the morning, weekends, always when the office was empty. But presenting this evidence without revealing how they obtained it was the challenge. "You look tired, Mommy," Lily said one Thursday morning as Emily took her to school. The girl was 7 years old, but sometimes seemed 40, with the way she observed things. "Just work, my love. Nothing to worry about." "Grandma Thompson said you're getting too thin, that you're not eating right." Lily looked at her with those huge brown eyes, so much like her own. "Are you sad about Uncle David?" Emily almost lost control of the steering wheel. "What, Lily? Why would you ask that?" "Because you have that look every time you talk about him. The same look Isabella has when she talks about the boy she likes at school." Lily swung her legs in the back seat. "Do you like him, Mommy?" "You can like him, you know. I won't be mad." Emily's heart tightened. "Lily, things are complicated between adults. It's not as simple as liking or not liking." "But Grandma Thompson said you complicate things, that sometimes we just need to let things be simple." Mrs. Thompson and her talks with Lily. Emily would have a long conversation with the neighbor about what was appropriate to discuss with the 7-year-old. After dropping Lily off at school, Emily drove to the office with a knot in her stomach. Today was the day of the quarterly audit. External auditors would come to review all ongoing projects, including the strategic one she was leading. if the forged documents from Sarah got into their hands before she could expose the fraud. "Emily!" Michael intercepted her in the lobby, looking agitated. "We need to talk, now." They locked themselves in an empty meeting room on the 20th floor, away from prying ears. "The auditors arrive in 2 hours," Michael said without preamble. "And I found something out. Sarah has already prepared a complete package with the fake documents and sent it directly to the head of the audit team with an anonymous message saying, 'There are concerning irregularities in the project you're leading.'" Emily felt her blood run cold. "How did you find this out?" "Because the head of the audit team is my cousin. He called me last night, worried, wanting to know if the accusations had any basis before bringing it to David." Michael pulled a USB drive from his pocket. "I have all the evidence that Julia gathered here, the access logs showing that it was Sarah who altered the documents, the timestamps, everything. But Emily, if we present this now, it will explode into a massive scandal. The media will have a field day. Executive assistant sabotages colleague out of jealousy of the CEO. Your private life will be exposed, as will David's. And if we don't present it, I'll be accused of fraud," Emily said, her voice surprisingly calm considering the panic she felt. "I could lose my job, my professional license. I could even be criminally prosecuted." "I know. That's why we need to tell David. Now. He needs to know everything. About Sarah, about Brian, about Amanda's plan. We can no longer protect him from the truth." Emily nodded slowly, feeling as if she were walking toward the abyss itself. "Then let's go." David was in his office, studying reports, when they entered. He looked up, and Emily saw how his face briefly lit up upon seeing her before he composed himself into professional neutrality. "Michael, Emily, what can I do for you?" "You need to sit down," Michael said seriously, "and you need to listen to everything we have to say without interrupting, because what we're going to tell you will make you furious, but you need to keep your cool. You need to think with your head, not with your emotions." David slowly sat down, his eyes alternating between Michael and Emily. "You're scaring me." For the next 20 minutes, they told him everything. About the documents forged by Sarah, about Brian being paid by Amanda to provoke him, about the plan to psychologically destabilize him until he lost control publicly, about how Emily had been turned into a weapon without her knowledge or consent. Emily watched David process each piece of information, saw the color drain from his face, saw his hands clench into fists so tight that his knuckles turned white. But he didn't explode, he didn't shout, he didn't break anything. When they finished, the silence in the room was deafening. "David," Michael called cautiously, "say something." "Amanda," David finally spoke, and his voice was so controlled it was frightening, "couldn't destroy me in the divorce. So she decided to do it slowly, using my company, my employees, my weaknesses against me." He stood up, walked to the window, and turned his back to them. Emily could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his breathing was carefully controlled. "And you," he said, turning to Emily, and there was something broken in his eyes. "You were dragged into this because of me. Sarah sabotaged you because what? Because she realized I care about you, and Brian used you as bait to provoke me. And all this crap, is because I couldn't get over my obsession with you." "No," Emily said firmly, standing up and walking toward him. "Don't put this on yourself. I am an adult capable of making my own decisions. Sarah sabotaged me because she is a bad person who can't accept losing. Brian used me because he is a ruthless manipulator, and Amanda orchestrated all of this because she is a cruel person who wants to see you destroyed. None of this is your fault, David." "But it is," he practically shouted, and for the first time, Emily saw his control waver. If I hadn't looked at you that way in the first meeting, if I hadn't investigated your life, if I had kept appropriate professional distance from the beginning, then I probably would have still been sabotaged by Sarah anyway," Emily interrupted him, "because competent women are always targets for insecure people, and Brian would have found another way to provoke you, and Amanda would have devised another plan. The only difference is that I would be fighting alone, with no allies, with no one who truly cared about what happened to me." David stared at her, and she saw unshed tears in his eyes. "How can you not hate me?" "Because you are not perfect, David. You are wounded and complicated, and sometimes make wrong choices. But you are also honest about your flaws. You seek help. You try every day to be better." Emily took another step toward him. "And because I understand. I understand being afraid of getting hurt again. I understand wanting to control everything, to never be caught off guard. I do the same thing, just in different ways." "That's very sweet," Michael interjected. "But we have an audit starting in less than 2 hours, and we need a plan." David took a deep breath, and Emily saw him forcing the change, from the vulnerable man back to the strategic CEO. "Okay, first thing, I call my lawyer. We will officially present the evidence against Sarah through the appropriate legal channels. Second thing, we call an emergency meeting with the board before the auditors arrive. We lay everything on the table, the forged documents, the evidence of who really did it. Everything, total transparency." "And what about Brian?" Michael asked. "Brian is more complicated. He technically hasn't done anything illegal, flirted with a colleague, was inappropriate, but there's nothing we can use to fire him without solid legal cause." David looked at Emily. "But we can make his life difficult. Transfer him to a project in another city, put him under strict supervision, make him understand that his games have consequences." "And Amanda?" Emily asked. David's expression hardened. "Amanda doesn't work here. She has no contracts with us. But she underestimates one thing. I have very good lawyers, and what she did can be framed as conspiracy to commit corporate fraud, attempted market manipulation, if we can prove that she intended to affect the stock value. I will go after her legally, with everything I have." In the next 2 hours, it was a whirlwind of activity. Lawyers being summoned. The board of directors convened in an emergency session. Sarah was called to HR, her expression shifting from arrogant confidence to absolute panic when the evidence was presented. Emily was present when the access logs were shown, when the timestamps were compared, when it became irrefutably clear that it was Sarah who had altered the documents in a deliberate attempt to sabotage a colleague. "This isn't what it looks like," Sarah tried, her voice high-pitched and desperate. I was trying to protect the company. Emily is having an affair with David. She's using her position to—" "Miss Miller will stop speaking now," the company's lawyer cut her off coldly, "before she adds defamation to the charges she already faces. Falsifying corporate documents is a serious crime. The company will not only terminate her for a cause, but will also sue her for damages to the reputation of the company and Mrs. Johnson." Emily watched as Sarah was escorted out of the building half an hour later, a box with her personal belongings in her arms, her face smeared with mascara. And she felt no satisfaction, just sadness at how much hatred and insecurity could turn someone into something so destructive. The auditors arrived at 2 o'clock. And this time, with all the correct documents, with clear explanations of what had happened, with total transparency. The audit that was supposed to last 3 days was completed. In one, not only did the auditors find no irregularities, but they also praised the speed and transparency with which the company had handled the internal fraud attempt. It was almost 6 o'clock when Emily finally returned to her office, exhausted to the bone. She needed to pick up Lily, but first she needed a moment, just a moment to process everything that had happened. A soft knock on the door made her look up. David was there, looking as exhausted as she felt. "Can I come in?" She nodded, and he closed the door behind him, but remained at a respectful distance. "I just wanted to thank you," he said quietly, "for not hating me, for fighting, for everything." "You don't need to thank me, David. I was fighting for myself too." "I know, but—" He hesitated. "Emily, I need to tell you something. Something my therapist made me realize." "What?" "I spent 3 years so afraid of being hurt again that I became someone who hurt others first. I invaded privacy, controlled, manipulated, everything in the name of protecting myself. But what my therapist made me see is that it's not about controlling the people around me. It's about trusting myself to survive if things go wrong." He took a step toward her. "And for the first time in 3 years, Emily, I trust myself. I trust that if you hurt me, I will survive. I trust that if this between us doesn't work out, I won't fall apart. Because I have fallen apart before, and I have rebuilt myself, and I can do it again if necessary." "David, let me finish, please." He was trembling slightly. "I'm not asking you to be with me. I'm not asking for anything, really. I just want you to know that what I feel for you is no longer obsession. It's no longer that sick need to control and possess. It's admiration, respect, and yes, attraction, a lot of attraction. But it's healthy now, or at least it's on the way to being so. And if you never want to give this a chance, I will accept that. I will respect that. And I will keep working to be the kind of man who deserves to be in your life, even if it's just as a colleague." Emily stood up, her heart beating so fast she was sure he could hear it. "And what if I say I want to try? Not now, not while all this confusion is still fresh, but eventually, slowly, with clear boundaries and constant communication, and—" She didn't finish the sentence because David had closed the distance between them, his hands framing her face with a tenderness that made her want to cry. "Slowly," he repeated, his forehead resting against hers. "With boundaries, with communication, with everything you need, Emily. I would wait a lifetime for you." "It won't need to be a lifetime," she whispered, her fingers gently gripping the fabric of his shirt. "But it will need to be the right way, for Lily's sake, for my sake, for your sake." "The right way," he agreed, and then, so softly it was almost a question, he touched his lips to hers. It wasn't a passionate or desperate kiss. It was a promise. It was patience. It was the first page of a story they would write together, slowly, carefully, with all the time in the world. When they parted, Emily smiled, a real free smile for the first time in months. "I need to go pick up my daughter." "I know. Go." David stepped back, creating space. "And, Emily, when you're ready for me to officially meet Lily, not as your mother's boss, but as someone who cares deeply for both of you, I would like that, very much." As Emily drove to pick up Lily, with the heavy evening traffic, she couldn't stop smiling. There was still so much to resolve. Brian was still at the company, Amanda was still out there, and building trust between her and David would be a long process. But for the first time since everything started, she felt hope. And hope was a beginning. July arrived, bringing cloudy days and a palpable transformation. In the atmosphere of Faria Lima Investments, with Sarah gone and a legal process underway against her, the rumors had changed tone. Now, instead of malicious gossip about Emily, there was admiration for how she had maintained her composure throughout the situation. Brian Taylor had been transferred to lead a project in Miami, effectively removed from any proximity to Emily or David. The decision was presented as a strategic expansion opportunity, but everyone knew the truth. And Brian, realizing that his plan had spectacularly failed, accepted without contesting. Emily and David had established a careful routine in the past weeks. Occasional lunches at discreet restaurants away from Faria Lima Investments, long phone conversations after Lily went to sleep, text messages during the day that ranged from professional to personally affectionate, but they hadn't kissed again since that day in her office. They were taking it slow, as promised. "Mom, you're smiling at your phone again," Lily observed one Saturday morning while they were having breakfast in the small apartment. The girl was eating pancakes that Emily had made, a rarity, since Saturdays were usually too hectic. "Am I?" Emily quickly set her phone aside, feeling her face heat up. "You are. It's Uncle David, right? You always have that look when it's him." Lily took a sip of orange juice, swinging her legs under the table. "When am I going to meet him for real? Like, not at work, but as, I don't know, like someone important?" Emily felt her heart tighten. This conversation had to happen sooner or later. "Lily, come here. I need to talk to you about something serious." The girl immediately stopped eating, her eyes widening with concern. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, my love, nothing like that." Emily pulled the chair closer. "It's about David. The truth is, I like him, more than just as a co-worker, and he likes me too. But before anything happens, before he becomes a real part of our lives, I need to know how you feel about it." Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she asked, "Is he going to be my dad?" The question pierced Emily like an arrow. "It's not that simple, sweetheart. Your dad... Well, your biological dad made his choices, and they didn't include us. But that doesn't mean we can't have important people in our lives. David isn't going to try to replace anyone. He wants to be part of our lives if you want him to." "Is he nice?" Lily asked with the typical frankness of children. "He is. He has his flaws, like everyone, but he's honest about them. And he cares a lot about you, even without knowing you well, because you're important to me." Lily considered this, biting her lower lip, just like Emily did when she was thinking. "Can I ask him questions? Like, important questions?" "Of course you can. Any questions you want." "Okay. I want to meet him for real." Lily smiled, but then her expression turned serious. "But Mom, if he's mean to you, if he makes you cry, I won't like him, okay?" Emily hugged her daughter tightly, feeling tears in her eyes. When had her baby grown so much? "Deal, my love. Deal." That afternoon, Emily sent a message to David. "Lily wants to meet you, for real. Are you ready?" The response came 2 minutes later. "I'm terrified and excited at the same time. Is that normal?" "Completely normal. How about a picnic in the park tomorrow? Neutral ground, no pressure?" "Perfect. Can I bring something? Food? Toys? A manual on how not to mess everything up with the woman you're in love with's daughter?" Emily laughed to herself in the living room. "Just bring yourself and breathe. She's going to ask you tough questions, but be honest. Kids know when adults are lying." "Emily?" "Yes?" "Thank you for trusting me with this, with her. I know how much she means to you. She's everything, so don't let me down, Anderson." "Not a chance, Johnson." Sunday dawned with a shy sun breaking through the clouds, one of those rare July days that felt like promises of better days ahead. Emily dressed Lily with special care. Jeans, a pink long-sleeve shirt, comfortable sneakers. Nothing too formal, but also not sloppy. "You're nervous, Mom," Lily observed as Emily fixed her hair for the 3rd time. "I am. It's important that you both get along." "Why? If I don't like him, you won't like him anymore either." Emily paused, considering the question carefully. "It's not that simple, sweetheart. But if you don't feel comfortable with him in our lives, then yes, that would change things, because you come first, always." They arrived at Central Park at 11 o'clock, and, David was already there, sitting on a bench near the lake, visibly nervous. He was wearing jeans and a navy polo shirt, and Emily noticed she had never seen him so normal, so human. "Hi," he said as they approached, quickly standing up. His eyes found Emily's first, a silent connection, seeking encouragement, before turning to Lily. "You must be Lily. It's a pleasure to meet you for real." He extended his hand formally, and Lily shook it with the seriousness of someone much older than her 7 years. "Nice to meet you, Mr. David. My mom said, I can ask questions." "You can ask as many as you want," David replied, and Emily saw his hands trembling slightly as he picked up the picnic basket he had brought. They found a spot on the grass under the shade of an IP tree, and as Emily spread the blanket and David began to take things out of the basket, sandwiches, fruit, juice, cookies, Lily watched him with that calculating intensity that children have. "First question," Lily said as soon as they were all seated. "Have you ever made my mom cry?" David didn't hesitate. "Yes, not on purpose, but yes. I made mistakes in the beginning. I was too intense. I invaded her space in ways I shouldn't have, and that made her uncomfortable and sad." "And did you apologize?" "Yes, and I'm trying to be better. I'm going to therapy to work on my issues." Lily nodded, apparently satisfied with his honesty. "Second question, are you rich?" "Lily," Emily began. Emily felt mortified, but David laughed, a genuine, light laugh. "It's all right, Emily. Yes, Lily, I am financially successful. I've been working for many years and built a company." "And are you going to try to use your money to impress my mom? Because Grandma Thompson says that rich men sometimes do that and then think they can control women." David looked at Emily, surprised and clearly impressed. "Your daughter is incredibly perceptive for 7 years old." "She has to be. She learned early that not everyone is trustworthy," Emily said softly. David turned his attention to Lily, and his voice became serious, respectful. "No, Lily, I'm not going to use money to impress your mom or to try to control you. If I buy something for you, it will be because I want to, because I care, not because I expect something in return. And your mom will always have an equal voice, in fact probably a bigger one, in any decision that affects us." Third question, why do you like my mom? This made David pause, carefully considering his answer. "Because she is the strongest and bravest person I've ever met. Because she raised you on her own and did an amazing job. You are proof of that. Because she isn't afraid to confront me when I'm wrong. Because she makes me want to be a better person. And are you going to stay? Because my dad didn't stay. He left when I was a baby." Lily's voice was small now, vulnerable. Emily felt tears threatening. She had never heard Lily talk about her father like this, so openly about abandonment. David moved closer, but respectfully, not invading the girl's space. "Lily, I can't predict the future. It would be dishonest if I said I'm absolutely sure everything will always work out. But I can promise this. If your mum and I are together, I'm not going to leave just because things get tough. I'm not going to abandon you because something easier or more convenient comes up. If it ever ends, and I sincerely hope it doesn't, it will be for serious, discussed reasons, and I will still care about both of you, especially you, because you didn't ask to be part of this. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Lily nodded slowly. "I think so. You're saying you'll try, but you can't guarantee it. That's honest. I like honest." "Me too," David said with a small smile. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the park. Lily gradually opened up, showing David her drawings on Emily's phone, talking about school, her friends, and how she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. David listened with genuine attention, asked relevant questions, never treated her like a child to be tolerated, but as a person who deserved to be heard. At one point, Lily ran off to play with other kids who were flying kites, and David and Emily were alone for the first time that day. "She's spectacular," David said, watching Lily laugh as she tried to fly a borrowed kite. "You did an amazing job, Emily." "She means everything to me," Emily replied. "And she liked you. I can see it. She wouldn't be so open if she hadn't." "I was terrified. I still am, a little." David took Emily's hand, intertwining their fingers. "What if I mess everything up? What if I'm not good at this? I've never been a father. I've never had to think about how my actions affect a child. You're going to make mistakes. I make them all the time, but the fact that you're worried about it already shows that you care." Emily squeezed his hand. "Just be patient. With her, with me, with us. Building a family, even if it's not traditional, takes time." "Family." David repeated the word as if testing its taste on his tongue. "It's been so long since I've had one. Not a real one, where people actually care about each other." Emily rested her head on his shoulder, and they stayed like that, watching Lily play, feeling the weight and possibility of that moment. When the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, Lily came running back, cheeks flushed and smiling. "Uncle David, do you want to come over for dinner? Grandma Thompson makes the best spaghetti in the world, and she always makes too much, and then you can meet her too." David looked at Emily, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded, smiling. "I would love to, Lily. Thank you so much for the invitation." On the way back, with Lily in the back seat of Emily's car, humming softly, David following in his own car behind them, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. Not the absence of problems or worries. She knew there was still much to resolve, much to build. But the peace of knowing she was making the right decisions, that she was allowing something good to enter her life, that Lily had space to love and be loved by someone other than her. When they arrived at the building, Mrs. Thompson was at the door of their apartment, clearly waiting. Lily had called from the park, excited, announcing they were bringing a guest. "So, this is the famous David," Mrs. Thompson said, her keen eyes studying every detail of him. "Come in, young man, and know that if you do anything to hurt these girls, you'll have to deal with me. I'm old, but I can still throw a sandal with deadly precision." David laughed, and Emily saw the tension leave his shoulders. "Yes, ma'am," duly noted. The evening unfolded with a surprising naturalness. Mrs. Thompson's spaghetti was truly spectacular. Lily told 1,000 stories, and David fit into their dynamic in a way that felt right, as if he had always been meant to be there. When Lily finally went to bed at 9 o'clock, exhausted from the day, Emily walked David to the door. "Thank you for today," she said softly, "for being patient, because it's you. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me." David gently touched her face. "Can I kiss you? Is it okay to do that here?" In response, Emily pulled him down, meeting his lips with hers. This kiss was different from the first, deeper, more certain, a promise of future kisses on future days. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "Good night, David." "Good night, Emily. And Emily, I think I'm falling for you, truly, in a healthy, scary and wonderful way. I just wanted you to know." After he left, Emily leaned against the closed door, her heart so full it felt like it might overflow. From the bedroom, Lily's sleepy voice called out, "Mommy, I liked him. Can you keep him?" Emily laughed through tears of happiness. "Thank you, my love. Good night. Good night, Mommy. I love you. I love you more." And for the first time in 7 years, Emily went to bed not just as a mother, not just as a professional, but also as a woman who was allowing someone to love her, who was learning to trust again, who was building something new and scary and absolutely beautiful. August brought cold winds and a twist that no one had predicted. Emily was in her office reviewing the final numbers of the strategic project, which, despite all the turmoil, was being completed exceptionally well, when Michael appeared at the door, his face pale and tense. "Emily, we need to talk. It's about Amanda." She felt her stomach tighten. In the past few weeks, with everything going well between her and David, with Lily adapting wonderfully to his presence in their lives, Emily had almost forgotten the threat looming in the background. What did she do now? She filed a lawsuit against the company and against David personally. She's claiming that he used his position as CEO to harm her in the divorce settlement, that he hid assets, that he basically defrauded her out of millions. Michael stepped inside, closing the door. But that's not the worst of it. She's also claiming that David has an inappropriate relationship with an employee, you, and that he's using company resources to benefit you, setting up nepotism and mismanagement. Emily felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. But that's not true. The project was audited. All the numbers were verified. There are no irregularities. I know, you know. Anyone who looks at the facts knows. But Amanda doesn't need to prove anything in the media, Emily. She just needs to plant the seed of doubt, and she's doing a very efficient job. Michael pulled out his phone, showing headlines from financial news sites. CEO of Faria Lima Investments accused of romantic nepotism. Ex-wife claims fraud in billion-dollar divorce. Corporate scandal, office romance costs millions to investors. "My God," Emily whispered, feeling nausea rise in her throat. "Lily, her classmates' parents are going to see this. She's going to be bullied at school for something that's not even true. David is handling it. He called a press conference for this afternoon. He's going to present all the evidence that the allegations are false. But Emily..." Michael hesitated. "There's something else. His legal team recommended that you two publicly distance yourselves, at least until this all blows over. No being seen together, no personal interactions that could be photographed or misinterpreted. So she won," Emily said, her voice breaking. "Amanda got exactly what she wanted, to separate us, to make any relationship we have seem dirty and wrong. It's not forever, just until..." "Until when, Michael? Until the lawsuit is over. Lawsuits like this can take years. Until the media forgets. The internet doesn't forget anything. Until I can look at David without feeling like I'm ruining his reputation just by existing." Emily felt the tears burning her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not now." Michael stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You two will get through this. I know you will." But Emily wasn't so sure. The press conference happened at 2 o'clock, broadcast live. Emily watched from her apartment. She had asked to work from home, unable to face the looks in the office, with Lily at school and Mrs. Thompson sitting beside her on the couch. David looked impeccable in a dark grey suit, flanked by his lawyers. He read a prepared statement, his voice firm and controlled. "The allegations made by Ms. Amanda Anderson are completely false and will be proven as such in the appropriate court. All assets were properly disclosed during the divorce. All agreements were overseen by independent judges and lawyers. As for the allegations of nepotism involving financial analyst Emily Johnson, they are not only false, but defamatory. Ms. Johnson was promoted and assigned to the strategic project based purely on her professional merit, as can be attested by dozens of colleagues and the exceptional results she delivered. Any attempt to tarnish her professional reputation will be met with appropriate legal action." The reporter's questions came fast and sharp. "Mr. Anderson, is there or is there not a personal relationship between you and Ms. Johnson?" David hesitated for a fraction of a second, long enough for Emily to know he was internally debating how much to reveal. Emily Johnson and I have developed a relationship of mutual respect and professional admiration over the months we've worked together. Anything beyond that is private matter that does not concern this company or our investors. But you do not deny that there is a personal relationship. I categorically deny that any personal relationship has influenced corporate decisions, resource allocation, or professional treatment. That's what matters. Mrs. Thompson held Emily's hand as the press conference continued, as David was interrogated and questioned, as his privacy was invaded in every imaginable way. "He's protecting you," Mrs. Thompson observed. "He could deny everything, say there's nothing." Emily read the letter 3 times, tears blurring her vision. Then she took paper and pen, because some things needed to be handwritten, needing the physical weight of ink on paper, and wrote her response. "David, it's 4 in the morning, and I should be sleeping, but here I am writing to you instead. You are right about true love not being perfect, and you know what? I don't want perfect. Perfect is boring. Perfect is unreal. Perfect is a lie that people tell to hide their imperfections. I want real. I want honest. I want someone who fights for me, who fights for us, even when it's tough." Emily was prepared for the difficult conversation when Lily came home from school that afternoon, but it was Lily who spoke first. "Isabella said she saw on the internet that you and Uncle David are in trouble, that his ex-wife is saying bad things about you." The girl's eyes were wide, scared. "Is it true, Mum? Is Uncle David going to have to leave?" Emily knelt in front of her daughter, holding her little hands. "Lily, my love, David's ex-wife is very hurt and angry, so she's saying things that aren't true, and because of that, David needs to prove that what she is saying is lies. But to do that, to protect his company and the people who work there, including me, he needs to step back a little, not because he doesn't care about us, but exactly because he does." "For how long?" Lily's voice was small, vulnerable. "We don't know yet. Maybe a few months. But he will come back, right? When this is all over, he will come back," Lily asked. And there was so much fear in her voice, fear of abandonment, of broken promises, of having someone taken away from her just like her father had been. "He promised he would, and I believe him, sweetheart. I really do." "I do too," Lily said, but there were tears in her eyes. "But I will miss him." "I will, too, my love. I will, too." That night, after Lily finally fell asleep, having cried softly into her pillow in a way that broke Emily's heart, she received an email from David. It had no subject, just an attachment. It was a letter, handwritten, photographed, and sent. "Emily, as I write this, it's 3 in the morning and I can't sleep. I keep thinking about all the ways I've failed you, all the ways my emotional mess and complicated past have dragged you into a hell you didn't deserve. My therapist told me today that true love is not about making someone's life perfect, but about being present during the imperfections. That it's not about avoiding storms, but about holding each other's hands while the storm passes. So that's what I'm asking you, Emily. Not to wait for me. It would be too selfish to ask that when I don't know how long it will take to resolve all this confusion. But I'm asking you to believe that when this is all over, I will still be here. I will still love you. I will still want to be part of your life and Lily's life. And if you decide that it's too much, that you deserve something simpler, easier, someone who doesn't come with all this impossible baggage, I will understand. I will respect it. And I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for the time I had with both of you. But please, believe me when I say this is not a goodbye. It's a see you later, a hang in there, a worth the wait. Because you are worth the wait, Emily. You and Lily are worth any wait, any struggle, any storm. Always yours, David. It's difficult, especially when it's hard. So yes, I will. Wait, not because you asked, but because I choose to wait. because what we built over these last few months, trust, communication, mutual respect, is not something that is easily found. It's not something to be discarded just because it got complicated. Lily will wait too. She asked me if you were coming back, and I said yes. Don't disappoint her, David. Don't disappoint us. But while we wait, live your life. Take care of yourself. Continue therapy. Fight your battles. And know that wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you are not alone. We are here, cheering for you, believing in you. And when all of this is over, because it will end eventually, I will be here. We will be here, waiting to hug you and say, welcome back. Always yours, Emily. P.S. Lily asked me to draw something for you. It's attached. She said it's so you won't forget us. Emily took a photo of the letter, along with the drawing that Lily had made that night before bed. 3 figures holding hands with a huge yellow sun above them and written in crooked, childlike letters, I love you, Uncle David, come. Back soon. She sent it all to David, and less than 5 minutes later received a one-word reply. Always. And Emily allowed herself to believe that despite everything, despite the storms and complications and all the pain, they would find their way back to each other. Because some stories don't end easily. Some stories require struggle. They require patience. They require faith. And this was one of those stories. November arrived with the warmth announcing the late spring, bringing cherry blossoms that transformed the city into a sea of purple flowers. 3 months had passed since David and Emily needed to part publicly, and they were the longest 3 months of her life. The lawsuit was finally coming to an end. David's lawyers had presented irrefutable evidence that all assets were declared correctly in the divorce, that there was no fraud, that Amanda was, in fact, trying to extort more money using false allegations. As for the accusations of nepotism involving Emily, independent audits confirmed that every professional decision was based on merit. Every penny of the project was accounted for correctly, every promotion justified by exceptional performance. But the damage was already done. Emily had spent 3 months being watched, questioned, having to prove her competence repeatedly to people who had already decided she was just the CEO's girlfriend. Lily had faced hurtful comments at school, children repeating things they heard their parents say. And David had fought his own battles, keeping his distance, even when every fiber of his being screamed not to do so. They communicated through messages, never calls that could be recorded, never meetings that could be photographed. Just words typed late at night, handwritten letters sent by mail, drawings from Lily that Emily photographed and sent to keep him connected. But now finally it was ending. Emily, you have a call on line 1, Julia's voice echoed through the intercom. It's the law firm Silvera and Associates. Emily's heart raced. This was the firm that represented David. She answered with trembling hands. Miss Johnson, this is Dr. Helena Silvera. I have good news. The judge just issued the verdict. All charges against Mr. Anderson and against Faria Lima Investments have been dismissed. Ms. Amanda Anderson has been found guilty of abusing the judicial system and will have to pay all court costs, in addition to a substantial fine. As for the allegations involving you specifically, they were not only rejected, but the judge made a point of stating in his ruling that attempts to destroy the professional reputation of a competent woman through implications of romantic nepotism are a particularly insidious form of gender discrimination and will not be tolerated in this court. Emily felt tears streaming freely down her face. Is it over? Is it really over? It's over. You are free to live your life as you see fit. And if I may offer a personal observation, you are an exceptional professional who did not deserve to have your reputation attacked in this way. Keep your head held high. After she hung up, Emily sat in her office for long minutes, processing. It's over. The storm had finally passed. She picked up her phone, her fingers hesitating over his name in her contacts. Before she could decide whether to call or not, a knock at the door made her look up. David was there. He looked different, thinner, with deep dark circles that betrayed sleepless nights, hair slightly longer than he usually wore, but his eyes shone with something she hadn't seen in 3 months. Hope. "Hi," he said, his voice hoarse. "Hi," she replied, rising on shaky legs. "I know we should talk first, set expectations, do everything the right and responsible way," David said, not moving from the door, as if he were afraid that if he got closer, he wouldn't be able to control himself. "But Emily, I can't anymore. 3 months without seeing you, without touching you, without hearing your voice, Liv. It was the hardest thing I've ever done." "Then stop standing there at the door," Emily said, a laugh mixed with tears, "and come here." David crossed the room in 3 long strides, pulling her into his arms with an urgency that took her breath away, and then he was kissing her, desperately, relieved, filled with 3 months of longing condensed into a single moment. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying and laughing at the same time. "I love you," David said, framing her face with his hands. "I love you so much it hurts. And I know we still have a lot to talk about, a lot to rebuild, but Emily, please tell me you still want this. That still wants us. I never stopped wanting." "Never," she replied, her hands gripping his shirt as if he could disappear at any moment. "Lily never stopped asking about you. Every night, every damn night she asked, 'Can Uncle David come back?' And I had to say, 'Not yet, my love.' But now I can come back, if you still want me. We've always wanted you, idiot." Emily pulled him in for another kiss, softer this time, more promise than urgency. A discreet cough at the door made them break apart abruptly. Michael was there, grinning widely. "Sorry to interrupt your hallmark moment, but you do realize the door is open, and half the floor probably just witnessed that, right?" Emily felt her face heat up, but David just laughed, a genuine, carefree laugh that she hadn't heard in months. "Let them see," David said, still holding Emily close. "I have nothing left to hide. I'm not ashamed to love this extraordinary woman." "Well, because you have a meeting with the board of directors in an hour," Michael said, stepping in and closing the door behind him. "And David, there's something you need to know before that meeting." David's expression turned serious. "What?" "The board is impressed, not just with how you handled the lawsuit, keeping the company stable, protecting the employees, being transparent, but especially with the results of the strategic project that Emily led. The numbers are exceptional. There's interest from several international companies to partner with us based on the success of that project." Michael looked at Emily with pride. "And the board wants to offer you something, Emily, the Chief Financial Officer position, with all the benefits, autonomy, and a seat on the board." Emily felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "What? But I'm only 28. I don't have enough experience to—" "You have exactly the experience needed," Michael interrupted. "You proved under the worst possible circumstances that you can lead, that you can deliver exceptional results, even under immense pressure, that you have unwavering integrity. You're exactly the kind of leader we want." "But," Emily looked at David, concern in her eyes, "won't this create even more complications with our relationship?" "That's why I'm going to refuse to vote on this decision," David said. "I'll declare myself unable to vote due to our personal relationship. The decision will be up to the rest of the board. And Emily, they've already decided, unanimously. You earned this completely on your own." Emily covered her face with her hands, trying to process everything. 3 months ago, she was struggling to prove she wasn't just the CEO's girlfriend. And now she would be Chief Financial Officer, one of the most important positions in the company, earned on her own merit, with unanimous recognition. I need to think, she finally said. I need to talk to Lily. This decision affects her too. More work hours, more responsibility, less time together. Of course, David said gently. You don't have to decide now. But Emily, whatever your decision is, I will support you. And I will be by your side, always. The meeting with the board of directors took place at 3 o'clock. Emily entered the meeting room on the 42nd floor, the same place where everything had started 8 months ago. But this time, everything was different. She was no longer nervous. She was no longer insecure. She was firm in who she was and what she had achieved. The 7 board members were present, including 2 women whom Emily respected immensely. The board chair, a 65-year-old man named Albert Smith, began the meeting. Miss Johnson, thank you for being here. As Mr. Harris has likely informed you, we would like to offer you the Chief Financial Officer position at Faria Lima Investments. This offer is based purely on your exceptional performance, your demonstrated leadership under pressure, and the extraordinary results you delivered. Mr. Anderson has declared himself unable to vote on this matter due to your personal relationship, which, I must add, is no problem for this board as long as it is kept transparent and professionally managed. I appreciate the trust, Emily began, her voice steady, but I need to be honest with you. I have a 7-year-old daughter who needs my presence. If I accept this position, I need assurances that I can maintain some balance between work and personal life. I don't want to sacrifice my daughter for my career. That's exactly why you're the right choice, one of the board members, Dr. Patricia Smith, said with a smile. You're not willing to compromise your values for a position. That's integrity, Miss Johnson, and we can work with flexible hours, remote work, when necessary. We want you in this position, and we will do whatever it takes to make it feasible. Emily looked around the table, saw genuine respect in the eyes of each board member, and finally allowed herself to believe. Then I accept, with pride and gratitude. Applause echoed through the room, and David, sitting at the other end of the table, respecting the professional distance, smiled at her with so much pride that it made her heart tighten. That night, Emily arrived home earlier than usual, with David following closely behind in his own car. Lily was doing homework at the living room table when they entered, and the girl looked up, took a second to process, and then, "Uncle David!" She ran and jumped into his arms with such force that it almost knocked him over. "You're back! You really came back!" David lifted her up, hugging the girl tightly, and Emily saw tears streaming down his face. "I'm back, little one, and I'm not going away again. I promise." "Do you really promise? Like a real promise?" "A real promise." David set her down, kneeling to be at her level. "Lily, I want to ask for your permission for something. Can I do that?" Lily nodded, serious. "I would like to ask your mom out, officially, but only this time with Mrs. Thompson and Michael as witnesses. This time with absolute certainty that the answer would be yes, and it was.